Guys, I'm not sure what to say. I'm not. I don't think words can describe what I'm trying to describe. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna put one of my CDs back in the case. Just got finished listening to this one, it was pretty cool. That's not the topic of today's video though. I'm upset. I'm mad. I'm pissed. And you might be wondering, why am I pissed? Huh? I'm actually not pissed. I'm very excited because today's album of the day is Do You Know Who You Are by Texas Is the Reason. And this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and I finally have it on CD. I found one that was still wrapped somehow. I couldn't be more blessed to own this piece of magic. So, who is Texas Is the Reason? Just one of my favorite Midwest emo bands, probably one of the best ones at that period in history. Texas Is the Reason is easily one of the most influential 90s emo bands that propelled emo from a underground post-hardcore screamo background into something more digestible. Turned it into a more easily understood, easier to listen to, or even play on the radio as well style of music. And you might be wondering, so how did emo become that way? So to give you a quick history lesson, and this isn't really going to do it that much justice, but I will try. A quick history lesson is in the late 70s and early 80s, a genre called hardcore punk started to arise within punk rock scenes, notably in San Diego and Washington, D.C. were two of the big ones that I can remember. Then a bunch of other hardcore scenes started to develop around other parts like New Jersey, Boston, other places. But within these hardcore punk scenes, emo started to arise out of them, and emo started with emocore, which was a offshoot of hardcore punk, where the emphasis was, instead of being placed on the aggressive playing style, there was a more dynamic and emotional approach. And by that I mean there's softer sections, there's lyrics about like isolation, alienation, depression, loneliness, other things like that, right? As opposed to We Hate the Government in a 13-second song. So emo-core gave rise to post-hardcore, which was an expansion upon emo-core and hardcore punk and those kinds of things. So post-hardcore is special because it's not really a genre that is based in emo-core, but emo-core played a huge role in propelling it. But post-hardcore is basically just take the aggression of hardcore punk and mix it with something else cool. And so in the 90s, we have all these other abrasive styles. We got emo-core, we got melodic hardcore, we've got screamo, emo violence. But there's one genre that was different, and that was Midwest emo. Midwest emo was less aggressive and more melodic. And because of that, it allowed people to listen to it without like having to be like a punk indie head or whatever, you know? And that's why this album is really important, because it's one of the albums that absolutely pioneered that style. Whereas a lot of post-hardcore and emo during this time, that they screamed the song, that they have that weird inflection in their voice where it kind of sounds sassy almost. Lyrics tended to be a lot more poetic and super introspective. And then we have songs like Nickelwound, for example, being a bit more straightforward within like, it's getting colder again, and I'm gonna be inside way too much again. This is becoming way too routine for me. You know, like it's more straightforward, easier to digest. And that's what separated this genre, Midwest emo, from the other styles of emo. And that's what makes first wave Midwest emo so important in the development of emo pop. Because without that, we wouldn't have bands like Seosin or bands like Jimmy Eat World, which actually came directly out of that scene. Bands like Jejune or the Get Up Kids or the Promise Ring. We wouldn't have bands like that if it weren't for Midwest emo. And no, Midwest emo is not just the sound from the Midwest. That is just the name coined because a lot of the bands were from the Midwest. This band is actually from New York, actually. Fun fact. But yeah, I do apologize for my mistake saying post-hardcore came out of emo-core. That is wrong. Post-hardcore was the first thing before emo-core. Emo-core is basically like an expansion off of post-hardcore. So I got that backwards. That's my bad. But anyways, so this album especially, what I liked is that it still has that kind of post-hardcore aggression to it, as opposed to like late 90s Midwest emo like American Football or the Jim Yoshi Pileup, other post-rock infused bands. I like to call that post-emo. And as well, I mean, during this time in the 90s, there was a brief period where Midwest emo was actually called post-emo indie rock because of the lessened aggression and more attention to the texture of music rather than just being loud. So, I would recommend this. Oh, first, great songs. Nickel Wound is great. Back and to the Left is great. The Magic Bullet Theory is great. There's no way I can talk myself out of this one tonight. Something to Forget. Basically, the whole album. Recently, there's been a surge in popularity in Do You Know Who You Are, the song. But I feel like that's kind of similar as to how Safe in Your Skin by Title Fight got popular. It's just kind of one of those, like, really atmospheric, aesthetic songs. But yeah, I would recommend this to anyone that likes 90s emo or 90s rock music that has, like, an upbeat, kind of uplifting touch to it. Highly energetic, distorted guitars. If that makes you happy, then you'll like this. But yeah,